After a lot of hype and a lot of pressure, Jack Leiter's rookie season more than lived up to the billing.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 12 seasons, including all 7 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, we're talking about Jack Leiter's rookie year, what went well, what didn't go well, and why I think the ceiling with Jack Leiter is completely different now than how I felt exactly a year ago. But before we get into all that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. Now, Jack Leiter finishes his rookie year on a good note with those 7 innings of 10 strikeout, 2-run ball against the Cleveland Guardians, and what was a very nice capper to what was a good season for Jack Leiter. This was a guy who came in with all the hype in the world. This was the next prince that was promised, the future ace, the successor to whoever it is. I mean, this was a lot of pressure that was placed on Jack Leiter. This is a guy who had high expectations on himself from the second he stepped on the field at Vanderbilt. I mean, and this is a guy who comes from a great pitching stock, a great pitching family, maybe the first family of pitching, just with the amount of big league pitchers in the Leiter family, with his dad, with his uncle, with his cousin. And I believe there's another cousin that's either in the big leagues or right on the verge of the big leagues. There's just a lot of Leiters in the big leagues in its history. And Jack is asserting himself and has a chance to possibly be the best Leiter. Now, that's a big ask because his dad had a 20-year big league career, finished it with a ring with multiple all-star appearances, but this guy has a lot of hype on him. When the Rangers drafted him second overall, the thought was this is the most polished pitcher we've seen coming out of the draft since basically David Price, who took all of 3 seconds to walk from Vanderbilt into the major leagues and heck was pitching in the World Series. I believe that was his first year since being drafted. Granted, it was in the bullpen, but he was just a great pitcher right away. And a lot of people thought Jack Leiter was going to be the same thing. He was just going to walk into Double-A, where the Rangers started his professional debut, and he was just going to dominate everybody. Then he was going to go to Triple-A. Then he was going to be in the big leagues within like a year and a half. And that was not the case. It took a minute for Jack Leiter, but this year was a great year. Overall, I was incredibly pleased with what I saw from Jack Leiter. Finishes the year with a 3.86 ERA, a 10-10 record, 10 wins, 10 losses, 9 no decisions in 29 starts, 151 2/3 innings, 148 strikeouts, 67 walks, 18 homers, and a partridge in a pear tree. This overall doesn't look like the most impressive season, but just the overall picture doesn't tell the full story of what Jack Leiter did this year. Because starting this year, I did not think Jack Leiter was ready. He had some moments last year in 2024, making his big league debut. That was one of the wackiest and wildest big league debuts I can remember for a pitcher in quite some time. His defense let him down. He let himself down with some hard contact. He had some nasty swings and misses. And overall, it was just kind of a weird mishmash, jumbled bag of odd results that you didn't really know exactly what to pull from. And overall, last year, he was the best pitcher in AAA Round Rock. He was the best pitcher in that international league. He won the Pitcher of the Year award for that league. And he was pretty good. He took some steps forward. He looked a lot better towards the back half of that season after getting sent back down to the minor leagues after making his big league debut. He looked a lot better. He had some moments, but ended the season out of the rotation and comes into spring training. And the thought was, okay, well, Jack Leiter made some progress, but a lot of his development was just the same things over and over and over again that he just was not fixing. Basically just throwing the four-seam fastball almost exclusively to the detriment of his other pitches, and he could not land that four-seam fastball on the glove side. He just kept missing away, and he just could not take that next step. This year, he comes into camp, and the Rangers rotation is wide open because of two major injuries. And the whole question this entire spring training was, is it going to be Jack Leiter? Is it going to be Kumar Rocker? It turns out it's both. And then eventually it was just Jack Leiter. And I don't think Jack was ready. I didn't think Jack was ready. Clearly, I see now he pretty much was, or was going to be thrown into the fire nonetheless. This was not just a situation where a young, promising pitching prospect can take his time to matriculate to the big leagues. And whenever his team has a spot for him, he can get in there when he's ready. The Rangers needed him this year because they had championship expectations, which of course fell short, but not because of Jack Leiter. Jack Leiter stepped in there because the Rangers needed a starting pitcher who could get big leaguers out. And that's what he was. The Rangers knew he could get big leaguers out. They thought there'd be some clunkers, and there were. But what made the difference this year is he came into camp throwing significantly harder than he had in years past. I mean, not like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 miles an hour faster, but it was easy cheese too. It wasn't like he was just, grunting for it. It wasn't like he was throwing his arm off every single pitch because he was durable. He made 29 starts this year. We'll talk about the blister issue and not pitching as deep into games as we would have liked later on in this show. But the fastball had some easy life to it. He's got great extension on it. He's got a great shape on it. So he's getting down the mound, the extension. He's only 6'1". He's not, Kumar Rocker size. He's not 6'5", 6'7". He's not Chris Young size at 6'10", but he gets down the mound. The shape of his fastball makes it even look harder than the 97 miles an hour that it was this year. I mean, 97.2 is what he averaged on the four-seamer, which was, way up there. I mean, the 88th percentile of four-seam fastball velocity, of just fastball velocity this year. But he also started trusting that sinker a little bit more. He started throwing it last year, and it really helped get guys off of just sitting on the four-seam fastball. Because last year, the fastball was still good last year, but it was the only good pitch that he had, and opposing hitters knew it. So if they recognize spin, if they recognize a changeup out of the hand or a slider, curveball, or whatever out of the hand, they knew it either wasn't going to be a strike, or if it was hanging, they could just crush it. So they could just sit on that fastball and tee off on it, even though it was a good pitch. But because he added the sinker this year, because he added that kick change, that overall the run value doesn't look great on that kick changeup. There were some moments where the changeup looked great. There were some starts where it didn't look as good. But those pitches, the run value on the sinker was very, very good, because if you got those two different types of those two different types of fastballs, and you are a primary fastball guy, hitters can't just sit on one type of fastball. It'll get them off. They will, make bad contact. They will be swinging and missing, and they will not know exactly what they're looking for. It just gives you that extra edge, and that's exactly what it did. And the other thing that he did really well this year was something I thought he'd never do. I did not see a future in which Jack figured this out, but he learned how to more consistently, I'm not going to say every time, that's a bit much, but much more consistently, he learned how to fix whatever issue it was that was leading to him missing glove side every time with that four-seam fastball. Of just so many times he could dot it on the outside edge, on the outside corners, and hitters had to start respecting it. So when he did miss that little bit more outside, which is away to right-handed hitters and in to left-handed hitters, when he did start to miss that a little bit more, then hitters had to chase. They had to respect, because they knew he could land that pitch right there, and it could be a called strike three, which he got a significant number of this year. This was a different type of pitcher, and with that, I mean, with being able to command his pitches, not just control them, not just avoid being incredibly wild and working a whole bunch of walks, which he did do a decent amount, a little bit worse in the first half than in the second half this year. But because he was able to add more velocity to that fastball, to add enough pitches in his arsenal that were good enough and complemented that fastball well enough, and also locate that fastball, the ceiling changed. The thought of what Jack Leiter is and could be changed with what he did this year. The overall numbers aren't painting a picture of a guy that was absolutely dominating. But you look at the changes he made in the second half, the changes that he has made in this year, which were significantly more impactful than the developmental changes that he had made in the first 2-3 years of his professional career. I mean, heck, we're only 4 years away from him being drafted. I mean, pitchers, they take a long time sometimes to matriculate up to the big leagues. And he started in Double A. It was a big, aggressive assignment. And it was the first time he had ever really struggled while playing the sport of baseball, while not just dominating everybody that was in front of him. It took him a minute. And I really mean just a minute to get to the big leagues. But the amount of success he had in the big leagues this year was incredibly impactful on not just the way I think about him now, not just the way he's perceived around the league now, but of what he can be. But there's still some things to improve on. There were still some things that Jack Leiter struggled with this year and some ways that he can get better. We're going to talk about that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and you'll get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. Let's look at some of these World Series props right now. To win or to hit the most home runs in the World Series, Shohei Ohtani is unsurprisingly the favorite at plus 200. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., second favorite at plus 700. And then Max Muncy, third favorite at plus 750. And then rounding out the rest of this top six is George Springer plus 900, Dalton Varsho plus 1,000, and Teoscar Hernandez at plus 1,300. I feel pretty good about Vladimir Guerrero hitting a couple home runs, but I bet Shohei Ohtani will hit a couple as well. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. This show is also brought to you by Rugiet. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body needs just a little extra support. That's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED, designed to help stop making excuses and start making moves. Rugiet makes it so easy to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor, 100% online, no awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments. It prescribes your treatment, ships discreetly straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. Visit rugiet.com/lockedonmlb to get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/lockedonmlb. And don't forget to use our code LOCKEDONMLB so they know we sent you. Rugiet. Stop making excuses and start making moves. On tomorrow's show, I'll be talking a little bit about the World Series, and I'll also be talking about Adolis Garcia's season, maybe even a big picture view on just what the heck are the Rangers going to do with Adolis Garcia. That'll be on tomorrow's episode of Locked on Rangers. Now, Jack Leiter was by no means perfect this year. He did have some struggles, but he came out of the gates strong, and immediately that progress was kind of haltered or at the very least slowed down. I mean, the first two starts, he was excellent. I mean, against Boston, he went 5 innings of 1-run ball, and then against Cincinnati, he had those 5 innings, 6 strikeouts, and just the one hit was all he allowed, and then he got yanked from that game after just 70 pitches, and the thought was, okay, what the heck is happening there? Jack Leiter's looking the best he's ever looked. Heck, that might have been his best start of the year had he been able to go 6, 7, heck, maybe even 8 innings with the level of pitching that he was doing on that day. But a blister shut him down for what was supposed to be not even a full start. It was supposed to be, Jack Leiter's going to be back for his next start. We were just being precautionary, blah, 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 blah. And that was the first of about 17 different injuries the Rangers had this year that was worse than initially reported or told about by the Rangers, because it didn't feel like the reporting was off. It felt like just either each of these injuries just got a little bit more complicated, or the Rangers were just saying whatever they were saying that was not entirely accurate. But at that point, he had a 0.9 ERA, came back a month later, 25 days later, and started to struggle a little bit. In the first half, Jack Leiter did struggle with the walks, was not doing a great job of pitching deep into games, was not doing a good job of limiting those walks, was not doing a good job of getting strikeouts either. The first half was a little tough for Jack Leiter. In that first half, he had a 4.37 ERA in 16 starts, just 7.7 strikeouts per 9, about a batter and a third per inning, or a base runner and a third per inning reaching base. That was still not particularly great in the second half, but it was worse in the first half. The home run ball was also a little bit worse, 10 homers and 80 innings in the first half. It was just a little bit of a struggle for young Jack Leiter. But the reason that he struggled is because in 2-strike counts, really early on, the problem with Jack Leiter was his secondary stuff. That was the thing that was an issue. He was a little bit too reliant on the fastball. He didn't quite have that feel for the kick changeup. It felt like just yet. But he would get guys into 2-strike counts. He would get guys into 0-2 counts, and then he'd try and be too fine. He'd try and be too perfect and make the most perfect pitch, as opposed to just doing what he did to get those first 2 strikes. Because it's hard to get ahead of big league hitters 0-2. He would do that a lot in the first half, and then just try to make the most perfectest pitch and end up throwing non-competitive pitches because he was trying too hard. He was pushing himself too hard, as opposed to just trusting his stuff, which is really darn good, to just do the work to finish off these hitters. I mean, the thing that kind of shows this after 0-2 in the count. So once he went up 0-2, hitters were hitting 188 with a 478 OPS. Now that's not, overwhelming numbers, but hitting 188, nearly 200, after 0-2, hitters should be hitting like 130, 110, 089 or something like that with the stuff that Jack Leiter has. They should not be, hitting home runs. They gave up multiple home runs after going up 0-2 in the count. That cannot happen. He'd also walked multiple guys, 5 different guys that he walked after going up 0-2 in the count. It also would run his pitch count up. It was also part of the reason why he wasn't able to pitch super deep into games. It is just that he would get up 0-2 on these guys, and it'd take 5-6 pitches to put the guys away, or God forbid he'd give up a hit after going up 0-2 in the count. And then by the time it rolls around to the 4th inning, he's at 90-something pitches, and he's not able to go deep into a game. He got much better at that as the season progressed, but early on, that was a problem of just trying to make the most perfect pitch. That was just not good. It was not in a good result, and not trusting that, what got me to 0-2, it might not always get me strike 3, but it will at least get some soft contact. It might not always get me a strikeout, but it will at least get me to put this hitter away and move on to the next guy so I can get as many outs as possible, which is the name of the game. Get as many outs, go as deep as you can in the game, because saving this bullpen is such an important thing. And when Jack Leiter got rocked, he did a better job this year of not letting it spiral. In his rookie season, whenever he got to the big leagues, and heck, even at times in the minors, not quite as much in Double A, because Double A hitters aren't quite as good as big league hitters or Triple A hitters. But whenever he would get himself into a jam, it's kind of the early career Martin Perez effect of, once that ball started getting rolling, once that snowball started rolling down the hill, he did not do a good job of stopping it. Once he started, a bloop hit here, 3-2 pitch that he did not get the call on, that he ends up walking a batter, and he's mad about it. And then he's also got, a bloop single that landed before, or a guy reached on an error, which was very, very rare with this defense, or they reached on his error, which happened a few times. Then he, early on in his career, he would struggle. He did a better job of not letting that skyrocket and not giving up the backbreaking home run. That is another thing that he did well this season, is that he only gave up 2 home runs that were more than 2-run homers. He gave up 1 grand slam, 1 3-run homer, but he did not give up the big homer all that much. 10 of his home runs were solo shots, which he did give up 18 home runs this year. It's not ideal. It's not a horrible rate. And when you have that high of velocity, occasionally you're going to give up the home run ball. When you are providing that much velocity, it kind of takes itself on. If the hitter is able to catch up with that velocity, then if they make good contact, a lot of times it will be hit harder. It will go farther. And that's just kind of something that happens. But he did a better job this year of not letting that big inning spiral. But the walks were still an issue this year. 4 walks per night. It got a lot better in that second half than it was in the first half. And in the first half, he walked 38 guys in 80 innings. And in the second half, 71 innings, 29 walks, a much better rate. He also did not do a great job of striking out guys in the first half, 7.7 Ks per nine, 10 Ks per nine in that second half. So seeing that progression get better from season in the middle of the season, from start to start, even of seeing him work better, work smarter, and to just be better as we were seeing him grow as we were going throughout the season. That was an encouraging sign for me, but there's still some work to be done on that changeup. It could be a little bit sharper. I mean, in terms of the run value, the off-speed run value this year, he was in the bottom quarter of baseball. Even the breaking ball run value in the bottom third of baseball. That's something that Jack Leiter really had coming out of college. It wasn't just his fastball. He was basically a 3-pitch pitcher. He had some kind of a changeup that he didn't really ever use because he didn't need to. He didn't really even have a sinker at that point because he didn't need to. He was a fastball, slider, 12-6 curveball kind of a guy. At the time in college, the slider was ahead of that curveball. The curveball kind of surpassed that, and then it passed it back again when he was in the minors. That the slider is the pitch that he trusts a little bit more. But I think he needs to work a little bit on that slider, maybe a little bit, find some way to get an edge on that slider because it was downright nasty in college, and so was that curveball. And the run value didn't really reflect that so much this year. The curveball, occasionally he'll drop in one that's just absolutely diabolical. And then a lot of times he'll have like non-competitive curveballs. He'll have some that he'll use it. He does a good job of occasionally using it to steal a strike here and there. He doesn't use it all that often. The curveball, you only use it about 10% of the time. But the slider, I think, just needs to be that little bit sharper, just that little bit more bite, because he didn't do a great job of getting Chase out of the zone. And when guys did expand the zone against him, they were not swinging and missing at a rate that they should be when they are chasing pitches that are out of the zone. So that's something that I think will really help Jack Leiter take that next step, is find that extra sharpness on his slider, on that changeup, the consistency on that kick changeup. I think being in year 2 of throwing it might help a little bit, and getting back to that curveball being a dominant strikeout pitch, because it's got the potential. All of those pitches have the potential to be dominant strikeout pitches. But what does this mean for Jack Leiter as a whole? What does it mean for the Rangers franchise as a whole? What he did this year? How much does it change the Rangers' future? Talk about that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by PrizePicks. Every day we make decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing PrizePicks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards, Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, and you are in the game. My favorite part is PrizePicks just added stacks. So if I want to ride with a certain player, I can select their passing yards, rushing yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup. I love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute. You can also follow other players in the app, copy and paste their lineups. It's one click. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Now, Jack Leiter made some strides this year. I really like what Fangraphs had to say, or had about his WAR, as opposed to what Baseball Reference does. Normally, I'm more of a Baseball Reference guy. The interface is better. I like their formula. It doesn't punish pitchers for not being huge strikeout pitchers and values innings, but I don't think it did as much this year. He had a 0.4 Baseball Reference WAR this season, Jack Leiter that is, and a 2.3 Fangraphs WAR. I think that's more about where he was. I mean, a 3.8 ERA, 150 innings, about a strikeout per inning. That is about a 2-win player, because it's not easy to do that. This was a big jump for Jack Leiter in his innings. It's the most starts he's ever made in a season in 29 starts, over 150 innings, I believe around 110, 112, 115-ish. Last year is what he made, combining the 77 that he pitched in Round Rock and the 35 and 2/3 he pitched in the big leagues in 2024. But the next step for Jack Leiter is working on those things and turning himself into not just because this performance is about a number 3 starter. I mean, if you have your number 3 starter, he's able to give you 150 innings. He's able to give you about 30 starts, around a 3. Say he's closer to what he did in the second half next year, a 3.2 ERA. That is a very good number 3 starter. But the ceiling for Jack Leiter, it's higher Now, I mean, back before 2024, I mean, this guy's stock fell quite a bit. I mean, the prospect rankings in 2024, at the end of 2024, Jack Leiter was the Rangers' number 8 prospect. Number 8 prospect. I think that was a bit harsh by MLB Pipeline. I think I had him maybe back down to number 7. It's more harsh when you're looking at who's ahead of him. At that point, Rocker was ahead of him. Justin Foscue was ahead of him. Yikes. Brock Porter was ahead of him. Double yikes. Anthony Gutierrez. I understood it at the time, but it still feels like a bit insane. I mean, the other top 10 Rangers prospect, Owen White, was also in the Rangers' top 10 prospects at that point. What a difference a year makes in the Rangers prospect landscape. But this changes the viewpoint of what the Rangers can do in terms of pitching development. I mean, Cody Bradford was kind of that first guy that was a homegrown, good starting pitcher for the Texas Rangers. And they've got more guys on the way. I mean, it's not just him. It's Kumar Rocker has got that ceiling that's incredibly high. They've got other guys like Jose Corniel, like Winston Santos that are also on the mend. Who knows what's happening with Alejandro Rosario? Allegedly, he's out there somewhere and still has a right arm that can throw baseballs, that eventually he might still have the ceiling of a number 2, number 3 pitcher. But the ceiling of Leiter is definitely a number 2 at this point, possibly even a number 1. A lot of it will depend on how much he can improve that off-speed stuff, that non-fastball pitches. The fastball stuff, that's all great. The way that his arsenal works together, that's all great. The amount of changes he has made to his stuff and to the way he pitches, the way he goes about stuff, the way it seems like he even is mentally on the mound. He's not getting rattled. Now, he's not letting anything really get to him. He gives up a homer, and then he just keeps on moving. One of the most impressive starts of the year for him. Not his best start. His best start was definitely those 7 shutout innings of 10 strikeout ball against the Guardians just right after the All-Star break. But for me, it was probably the most frustrating start, but also one that kind of showed, I think, his growth as a person, as a pitcher, as a human being. In Houston, the last start of the season that he made in Houston, where he got himself into a lot of trouble. The Rangers were in a tough spot at that point. They did not have a whole lot of help to go give him at that point. He was just kind of left on an island on his own in Houston. And he made it nearly 7 innings. He did give up 6 runs. 3 of those were unearned. 3 of them were earned. He did give up a homer, a hit by pitch, a walk, but only 1 walk. And maybe had he been a little bit better at fielding his position, maybe he would only give it up, 2 runs, maybe 3 runs in that start. Maybe that whole season is an entirely different thing. But for Jack Leiter to be able to bounce back after that incredibly rough first inning and to keep on pitching, to keep on going in this game, and to, give the Rangers a chance. He gave the Rangers a chance in that game. He did give up a couple more runs right after they took the lead in that 5th inning, and then gave up a couple more in the 7th inning, which I don't remember exactly the scenario in those pitches, but he was still pitching in that 7th inning, giving this Rangers bullpen a chance to just take a breather because they were so incredibly taxed at that point. And to see him, start number 27 of the year, that was start number 27, which at that point, I believe, had already surpassed the most starts he had made in a year. And to see him keep getting better as he's getting more tired. The velocity was down a little bit, towards the end of the season. I don't remember the last time he touched 100, but it wasn't in that last month of September. It might have been in that start against Arizona. That was another start where he, where he looked rough in the early innings and then settled in, found his groove, and just started dominating an Arizona lineup that had just crushed every single Rangers pitcher in that series. I loved seeing that kind of a progression from Jack Leiter because it shows you that, maybe the ceiling that we're putting on this guy, I mean, it's hard to put a ceiling on guys in general because there's always hypotheticals of what if they started doing this? Sometimes the ceiling is surpassed. I mean, look at Jacob deGrom. Not that I'm saying Jack Leiter is going to be Jacob deGrom, but when Jacob deGrom was coming up through the ranks as a prospect, I mean, he was a guy who was a converted shortstop in college. He was a guy who was called up at the time to just kind of fill a spot in the rotation. He was not a guy who was a top 100 prospect. I'm pretty darn sure. If he was at the very, very, very franchise. He was not even thought of as a top 5 pitching prospect in the Mets system at that point. And then he goes on to just keep on getting better and better and better. It's the same with Paul Goldschmidt, who was a guy who was drafted out of Texas State, a first baseman drafted out of Texas State. Not exactly the biggest school in Texas, not exactly the highest profile kind of a guy, but the work ethic those guys had to just keep getting better, the baseball acumen that those guys had, the just insane want to made their ceilings just keep on going higher. And that's, I kind of think, what Jack Leiter has. He already has those physical gifts that are impossible to teach. I mean, you can't teach a guy to just start throwing 100 miles an hour with easy life and a whole lot of extension. You can't just teach that. You can't grow that into somebody. But learning how to game plan, learning the nuances of baseball, of pitching, of developing a pitching game plan, of executing a pitching game plan, and doing it when he's pitching right behind Nathan Eovaldi, I really think that had such an incredible impact on him this year. I mean, both Evo and Jack Leiter talked about, the amount of time that they spent together, the amount of wisdom that Nathan Eovaldi was imparting. I mean, he has a similar style as Nathan Eovaldi. Now he doesn't have a cutter. His curveball isn't quite as good. He doesn't have a splitter. I really would love to see if he could throw a splitter. I think that would perfectly complement his arsenal, maybe even more so than this kick changeup. But if the kick changeup's working, then I say don't go away with it. Just learn how to tinker with it just a little bit better to make it that much more effective. But learning the ins and outs of pitching from a guy who, in Nathan Eovaldi, was kind of just a gasser early on in his career, just a guy who, sat 100, so he would just blow 100 by guys, and has turned into a crafty pitchability kind of a guy who still has that velocity in his back pocket, but has gotten much better at, game planning, of just being one of the headiest pitchers with still a lot of great stuff that I think he's got a lot of wisdom to impart on Jack Leiter. And that's why I think Jack Leiter is going to get even better. I think the perception of this Rangers team and their ability to develop homegrown pitching has completely changed under Chris Young's leadership. That has been the biggest overarching thing, besides just winning a World Series. That's obviously a big thing that changes the perception of this franchise and the future of this franchise. If you can point back to say, hey, look, at this point, this was the last team to win a World Series that was not the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, that might change in a week or so, but for right now, the Rangers are the last team not named the Dodgers to win a World Series, and that might still be the case for another year. They've got that credibility and being able to get the most out of Jack Leiter, get more than even when he was drafted. I mean, the ceiling was maybe number 2 starter. He's already a number 3 starter in his rookie year. That is incredibly impressive. And while he's a little bit older than some of the other rookies, he's 25 years old. He's by no means old, even for a rookie. The Rangers still have him under control for a lot of seasons. And I think the future is incredibly bright for Jack Leiter. And even if he's not, future ace, future Cy Young winner or All-Star or whatever kind of awards you want to prematurely lop onto him, which he might win or he might not. Even if he's just this right now, what he was this year, even the back half of this year, that is an incredible developmental win for Jack Leiter, for this Rangers organization. And it makes me incredibly excited to see what the future is for this kid, because the present is pretty freaking good. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.